Riding a motorcycle is an exhilarating experience, but it comes with its own set of challenges and risks that aren't always obvious to new riders. You might think you've got it all figured out after taking a basic course and watching a few videos, but the truth is, real riding skills come from experience, and experience often comes with mistakes. Today, we're going to dive into the unspoken rules of motorcycle riding. These aren't just the basics you learn in your safety course. These are the lessons that experienced riders have learned the hard way, through close calls, costly repairs, and moments that made them wish someone had told them sooner. These are the rules that can save you money, keep you safer, and make you a smarter rider from day one. So, let's get started with the first and perhaps most crucial rule every rider needs to internalize. Rule number 1. Always assume the driver can't see you, even when they look right at you. This might sound paranoid, but it's a reality that every experienced rider has faced. Picture this scenario. You're approaching an intersection, and a driver in a car waiting to turn looks right at you. You make eye contact. You think, great, they've seen me. I'm safe. But then, to your horror, they pull out right in front of you as if you weren't even there. This isn't just a rare occurrence. It happens far more often than you'd think, and it's not because drivers are intentionally trying to harm motorcyclists. The problem lies in how our brains process information. Motorcycles are small compared to cars and trucks. Our headlights often blend into the background of other traffic. And if a driver isn't actively expecting to see a motorcycle, their brain might simply not register our presence, even if their eyes are pointed right at us. This phenomenon is called inattentional blindness, and it's a real danger for motorcyclists. The driver's brain is looking for cars, not bikes, so it might literally not process the image of a motorcycle even when it's in plain sight. So, what's the solution? Always ride as if you're invisible. This doesn't mean riding scared, but it does mean riding smart. When you approach intersections or side streets, cover your brakes. Be ready to take evasive action. Adjust your lane position to make yourself as visible as possible. And always, always have an escape route in mind. Don't expect drivers to move for you. Don't expect them to stop. Instead, expect them to make mistakes, and position yourself to handle those mistakes safely. It might sound exhausting to ride this way, but once you experience that first "they looked right at me and still pulled out" moment, you'll understand why this mindset is so crucial. Remember, it's not about being paranoid. It's about being prepared. Because on a motorcycle, being prepared can mean the difference between a close call and a collision. Now let's move on to our second rule, which is all about making smart decisions when buying a bike. Rule number 2. Just because a bike is cheap doesn't mean it's a good deal. When you're new to riding, the temptation of a cheap used bike can be overwhelming. You're scrolling through online listings, and suddenly you see it. An older model with low miles and a price tag that makes your wallet smile. You start thinking, I could buy this today and still have money left over for gear. But before you rush to make that purchase, take a step back and consider why that bike might be so cheap. The truth is, cheap bikes are rarely cheap for no reason. Sometimes it's due to neglect. The previous owner might not have kept up with regular maintenance, leaving you with a ticking time bomb of mechanical issues. Other times, it's deferred maintenance. The bike might need new tires, a chain replacement, or major service that the current owner doesn't want to deal with. In some cases, it could be damage that's been patched just well enough to look decent in a photo. A bike that's been dropped or crashed might have underlying issues that aren't immediately visible but could cause serious problems down the road. The worst part is, you often won't realize how much that cheap bike is going to cost you until it's too late. You've already bought it. And now you're faced with repair bills that quickly eclipse any money you thought you saved. So, what's the rule here? If a bike is suspiciously cheap, assume it needs everything and factor that into your cost. Budget for new tires, fresh fluids, a new battery, chain and sprockets, and at least half a day of garage time to go over everything. Sometimes, a more expensive, well-maintained bike from a serious rider is actually the cheaper move in the long run. Remember, nothing sucks the joy out of riding like a great deal that turns into a never-ending project bike. You want to spend your time riding, not wrenching, especially when you're just starting out. This doesn't mean you can't find good deals on used bikes, but it does mean you need to approach those deals with a critical eye and a realistic understanding of potential costs. Factor in the cost of immediate maintenance and potential repairs. When you're looking at the price tag, a $500 bike that needs $1,000 of work isn't a bargain, it's a burden. Now, let's move on to our third rule, which is about a simple maintenance task that many riders overlook until it's too late. Rule number 3. Everyone has forgotten to check tire pressure until it ruined a ride. Tire pressure might seem like a small detail, one of those "I'll check it next time" things. But that's exactly why almost every rider, at some point, has gone out on a ride with tires that were way off the mark. Maybe you've experienced it yourself. You're out on a ride, and something just doesn't feel right. The bike feels a little squishy in the corners, or maybe it's fighting you in the straights. By the time you realize what's going on, you're either slipping in a turn, fighting the handlebars, or cooking your tires unevenly. Underinflated tires kill your handling. They make the bike feel sluggish and unresponsive. They increase your risk of a blowout, especially if you're carrying a passenger or luggage. On the flip side, overinflated tires reduce your grip, especially in wet conditions. They can make your ride harsh and uncomfortable, and they wear out faster in the center of the tread. But it's not just about comfort or tire wear. Incorrect tire pressure changes your braking distance, affects how your suspension works, and even alters how your bike reacts to wind or lane changes. In other words, it impacts every aspect of your ride. This is an easy one to overlook, especially on bikes without tire pressure monitoring systems. But once you experience the difference between riding on properly inflated tires and riding on tires that are close enough, you'll never want to skip this check again. So here's the rule. Check your tire pressure at least once a week, or, at the very least, before any long ride. It takes 2 minutes. Keep a small pressure gauge in your garage or tool bag. Make it part of your pre-ride routine. You'll save yourself from bad handling, premature tire wear, and potentially a dangerous blowout at speed. Remember, skipping tire pressure checks once is a rite of passage for new riders. Doing it twice? That's just being stubborn. Don't let something so simple and quick to check ruin your ride or put your safety at risk. Now, let's talk about another often neglected part of motorcycle maintenance that can have serious consequences if ignored. Rule number 4. Never assume your chain is probably fine. The chain is one of the most critical components of your motorcycle. It's literally the link between your engine's power and your rear wheel. Yet it's also one of the most neglected parts on the average bike. Many riders will go weeks, sometimes months, without giving their chain a second glance. They only pay attention when it starts making noise, skipping teeth, or, in the worst-case scenario, snapping completely. But here's the thing. A dry, loose, or kinked chain doesn't just sound bad. It changes how your bike rides in ways you might not immediately notice. Your throttle response gets sloppy. Shifting feels rough. In severe cases, the rear wheel can even lurch or bind mid-turn if the chain is in bad enough condition. And that's before we talk about the risk of a full-on chain failure, which can lock up your rear wheel or even damage your engine case. It's a scenario no rider wants to experience, especially at highway speeds or in the middle of a corner. People often forget that chains stretch over time. They wear unevenly, especially if your bike's alignment is off. And without regular cleaning and lubrication, they pick up road grime and debris that essentially turns them into a slow-moving hacksaw on your sprockets. So, what's the rule here? Check your chain every few rides. Look at the slack. Make sure it's within the manufacturer's specifications. Clean and lubricate it every few hundred miles, more often if you're riding in rain or off-road conditions, and don't wait until it's completely toast to replace it. A good chain and sprocket set is far cheaper than the damage a failed one can cause. Every rider has ignored chain maintenance at least once, but once it messes with your ride quality or your safety, it's a mistake you don't make again. Make chain care a regular part of your maintenance routine, and your bike will thank you with smoother rides and fewer unexpected issues. Let's move on to our fifth rule, which is all about a simple parking technique that can save you from embarrassment and potential accidents. Rule number 5. Always park facing out, especially on a hill. This might seem like a small detail, but it's one that every rider learns the importance of eventually, usually the hard way. Picture this. You've just arrived at your destination. You're excited to get off the bike and get on with your day, so you pull into a parking spot nose first, without thinking twice. It's quick, it's easy, and at the moment, it seems like no big deal. But then, the time comes to leave. Suddenly, you're faced with the challenge of backing your bike out uphill or on gravel or with a slope you didn't notice before. What seemed like a convenient decision when you arrived now feels like a trap. Unlike cars, motorcycles don't have a reverse gear. If you're parked downhill and nose in, you're now stuck trying to push several hundred pounds of machine backwards with your legs. Maybe you're on a slope. Maybe there's traffic flying past just behind you. Or maybe someone has parked so close to your back wheel that you barely have room to maneuver. It's awkward at best, and dangerous at worst. Even on flat ground, pulling forward into a spot often means having to fight your way out blind when you leave, with limited visibility and awkward angles. If you've ever had to duck walk a bike out of a tight space while holding in the clutch and trying not to tip over, you know exactly why this rule matters. The fix is simple. Always back it in, especially when you're on an incline or unfamiliar ground. That way, when it's time to leave, you can simply ride straight out, smooth, safe, and in control. It might take an extra few seconds when you arrive, but it can save you minutes of struggle and potential embarrassment when you leave. This is one of those things that nobody thinks about when they're new to riding. But once you've found yourself doing the world's slowest three-point turn in front of a crowd, trying not to drop your bike, you'll never want to park nose in again. Remember, it's not just about convenience. Backing out of a space, especially on a slope or with limited visibility, increases your risk of dropping the bike or colliding with another vehicle. By parking facing out, you're setting yourself up for a safer, smoother departure every time. Now, let's move on to our sixth rule, which is about being cautious when buying a used bike. Rule number 6. Never trust a just-filled fuel tank on a used bike. When you're looking at a used motorcycle, it might seem helpful when the seller says, "I just filled the tank for you." It sounds like a nice gesture, right? But if you've been around motorcycles long enough, you know that a full tank during a sale isn't always a favor. In fact, it can be a red flag, disguised as a splash of 87 octane. Here's why this matters. Fuel can hide problems. A full tank covers up the inside surfaces, potentially masking rust, sediment, or even small leaks. It prevents you from hearing the telltale rattle of debris bouncing around inside. It keeps you from inspecting the fuel filter or peeking inside the filler neck to see how clean or contaminated the tank really is. But it gets worse. More than once, that fresh fuel has actually been months-old gas that's gone stale, or worse, it's been mixed with additives to cover up bad running behavior. The seller fills it so you can't easily diagnose hard starting, surging, or idle issues during a short test ride. You might assume the bike just needs to warm up, take it home, and by the time you realize it's running like a lawnmower with a hangover, the seller is long gone. So, what's the rule here? Bring a flashlight and check the tank anyway. Ask how long the bike's been sitting. Smell the fuel. If something feels off, it probably is. And if they just filled it, that doesn't mean you can skip the inspection. It means you need to be twice as suspicious. If possible, ask to see the bike with a partially empty tank. This allows you to hear and see what's really going on inside. Look for rust, debris, or any signs of contamination. Check the fuel lines and filter for any signs of degradation or leaks. Remember, every rider's been burned at least once by taking a seller's word instead of checking for themselves. Don't let a full tank of gas empty your wallet on repairs later. A thorough inspection now can save you from headaches down the road. Let's move on to our 7th rule, which is about recognizing a dangerous state of mind that many riders overlook. Rule number 7. Riding tired is just as stupid as riding drunk. This is a big one, and it's something that catches a lot of riders off guard. Everyone underestimates fatigue. You might think, I'm just a little tired. I'll be fine once I get rolling. And for the first few miles, maybe you are. But then things start to slip. You miss a downshift. You space out at a red light. You forget to cancel your turn signal. Or worse, you forget to check that blind spot before changing lanes. Fatigue doesn't hit like a crash. It builds quietly. And on a motorcycle, where focus and reaction time are everything, riding tired is one of the easiest ways to get yourself into a situation you can't react to fast enough. Studies have shown that sleep-deprived riders can be just as impaired as those under the influence of alcohol. Your reaction time drops, your judgment gets lazy, and your risk tolerance shifts without you even realizing it. Unlike in a car, you don't have airbags or seat belts to help you recover from a mistake. The worst part is, tired riding usually sneaks in during long days, especially on road trips. You push for just one more hour, even though your brain checked out 30 minutes ago. Your posture slouches, your head dips at stoplights, your throttle control gets choppy. That's your body telling you, get off the bike. So what's the rule here? If you wouldn't drive a car in that condition, don't ride a bike. Pull over. Grab a coffee. Take a nap. Delay the ride if you have to. No one cares if you're late because you stopped to rest. Being late and alive beats being early and in the hospital. Or worse, not arriving at all. Learn to recognize the signs of fatigue in yourself. If you're yawning frequently, having trouble focusing on the road, or finding your mind wandering, it's time to stop. It's not worth the risk to push through. Remember, on a motorcycle, your ability to react quickly and make smart decisions is your primary safety equipment. Don't compromise it by riding when you're not at your best. Now, let's talk about a common mistake many riders make at the gas station. Rule number 8. Never ride off immediately after filling up the tank to the brim. This might seem like a minor point, but it's one that can lead to some seriously unpleasant situations. Picture this. You're at the gas station. The tank's full, but you decide to top it off just a little more. After all, why not squeeze in every last drop, right? Then you hop back on, fire it up, and ride off like nothing happened. But a few blocks later, you smell fuel. You glance down, and to your horror, you see gas leaking out of the overflow tube or all over your tank. Maybe it's dripping onto your hot engine. Maybe it's soaking into your pants. Either way, you're learning the hard way that topping off your tank can ruin your day. Here's the thing. Motorcycle fuel systems aren't designed to be filled to the absolute max. There's a reason for that little air gap in the neck of your tank. It's not just wasted space. It allows for fuel expansion as the bike heats up and provides proper ventilation inside the tank. When you overfill it, that fuel has nowhere to go, but out, often through the overflow tube or vent, especially when the bike leans or the fuel warms up and expands. Ultimately, internalizing these unspoken rules will not only enhance your safety and save you from costly mistakes, but will also transform you into a more confident, aware, and truly experienced rider, ready to fully embrace the freedom of the open road.